Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Off the Ball podcast. Extremely special guest here, Scott Wells, who's been a huge supporter of mine for a really long time, and it's a really special week as well. Open Cup next week kicking off, and an extremely special week for Asheville with everything that they've been through the last week, and they'll be hosting Greenville Triumph. So, Scott, pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. It's a pleasure as always. I appreciate every time I'm on with you because you do such a great job and appreciate all your content.
Yeah, appreciate it so much. So, yeah, let's get into it right away. Obviously, as I mentioned there, huge week coming up for Asheville City and U.S. Open Cup being back. Obviously, such a unique competition in the U.S. and that we get to see such a diverse group of players getting to compete against professional players. But for Asheville as a city, obviously with how much they've went through in this past year, how much does it mean to be able to be hosting a Open Cup game and just having footy back in Asheville?
Yeah, I think ever since I took over Asheville, I've been so proud, of being able to bring something like this to the city and being able to bring championships to the city. And it is a big part of what we do in the summer and the tourism side of things. So, we are, I'm incredibly grateful, but this is a different season for sure. I feel like I owe to do another year of Asheville after what they've been through, which I don't think that anyone will ever understand. Even when you see the news and the media, no one will ever understand just how many people's lives have been destroyed through the hurricane and what people are still having to deal with now. People that I know, that I'm connected with, and a lot of people that I don't know. But we need to bring happiness and some purpose back to Asheville again this summer, and just being out there again today for the first time since last summer was great. And you get that excitement, that feeling again, and I know a lot of the fans and a lot of the families that help us in the process of hosting are so excited to have it back. So yeah, it's certainly a give back season for sure for the city of Asheville.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's obviously the environment there is extremely special to begin with. I think of, your guys' games last summer, that were being played at a park and just how incredible the atmosphere looked and everything like that. So
Yeah.
obviously a very special time period. And you mentioned it a lot there. Obviously you've been able to build a really special relationship with the community in recent years. And I know even locally you have some very special relationships there. So can you just speak upon, how much the city kind of rallies around what at the end of the day is an amateur team?
Yeah, well, we used to play at Memorial Stadium downtown, and it was kind of we used to headbutt a lot with the baseball program there, the semi-professional baseball team. And I remember when I first went there, even before I took over at Asheville, when some of my players from Charleston were playing there, the baseball team would get the majority of the publicity and the fan base. And over the last 3 or 4 years since I've been involved, I've seen it transition massively. Our last season of Memorial, we were getting more fans than what the baseball program were. And obviously, we moved to UNC Asheville, which is a little bit more out the way, for a lot of the fans. But it didn't really matter. Once we got the stadium built and put in at UNCA, the fan base was incredible, and it got back to those heights of what Memorial was. So yeah, it's unbelievable what has happened. I think soccer is the number one thing to do in Asheville now. It's the number one thing that families want to be part of. We get people constantly sending us messages and emails about trying to change the kickoff times to 6 or 7 p.m. or a little earlier so they can make sure they're there. And that could be on a Tuesday, Wednesday evening when the kids have got school the next day early in May. But yeah, I mean, everyone's super hyped for it. And I think even more so this year. I think even more so people want to get back to normality here in Asheville, and they're so excited for the season. So again, it's another one of those franchises that you look at and you think it's going to be the next one to jump into the USL1. It has the fan base, it has the community, and again, I wouldn't have taken the job probably if it hadn't have got that feel to it. The way the club's feel is, and the fan base, and just the people that take so much of an interest. I mean, even outside of the games. There's constant fan events, in the evenings and dinners and meet the players. Like it's just constant, and the people we get in attendance for those things are, you can see how much it means to them. So yeah, I'm incredibly grateful to lead the program for sure, and I'm so excited that Asheville have it this summer and something to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. I think you framed it really well there. Obviously, and I think they're definitely in line to be able to make the jump. But I think, I think back to obviously last year when you guys went up to Newport for the quarters and the semi, and I just remember, seeing pictures of watch alongs and stuff like that, and seeing that there's very few things that compare to it in the U.S., especially throughout the
Yeah.
USL2 level. And I think it's so unique, and it's really a massive step for U.S. soccer as a whole. But it's really cool to just kind of see in action. And obviously, like you mentioned there, this season will be really special with everything that they've been through. And shifting gears a little bit, obviously, I want to talk about, how you put this team together for this U.S. Open Cup game. I think people that are familiar, obviously, with the Open Cup and, how amateur teams go about it know, roster construction, everything like that. But USL2 is so interesting just because a lot of your base players are college players throughout the course of the USL2 season. And a lot of them aren't eligible to play, obviously, due to NCAA regulations for these matches. So could you just speak a little bit how you put this roster together and what this is going to look like for this match?
I don't know. I mean, it's just constant. I mean, I've got the Open Cup team, the summer team, obviously Gardner Webb, which is my priority. So it's been a lot. But I think the key to the success in the USL2 or in the Open Cup is getting ahead of it and being two steps ahead. I started recruiting for the Open Cup at Christmas. You wait and see who doesn't get drafted, what the surprises are. There was a lot of players that didn't get drafted that I thought would. There were a lot of players that got drafted or got contracts, or went on trial and then was let go. So basically, just always having your hand on the pulse and making sure that you can identify the players that you think are good enough and have not got, for whatever reason, have not got the opportunity. You guys do a great job of that as well. Like I'm constantly looking at your content of seeing players that potentially have not got contracts that are a surprise, or guys that did get, opportunities to go in and train, and then you just keep tabs on them and see how they're doing and checking in with them. So I think this season, for the Open Cup more so than last season, we've been able to identify players that we believe are good enough for the next level, that had interest, had traction, and for different reasons it just didn't work. And so not only are you bringing in a good player, but you're bringing in like a lot of guys that are going through the same things right now that are struggling. So when we are at the hotel, and we're sitting down and we're talking in the lobby, they're all going through the same struggles. Mentally, they're frustrated, they don't understand, they're trying to find leads, so already you've got that kind of togetherness about them because they're all going through the same struggle right now. So yeah, it's been a lot of work. My staff have been great in helping me with it. I've got a couple of scouts out there that really take good care of me as well. I'll keep their names silent, so no one takes them. But yeah, no, it's been a struggle. But like I said, I think we've got it right this year. So very excited to see what happens on Tuesday.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you summarized it well there of obviously just how chaotic this season is. I know we're speaking upon it before it, but for a college player, this is an extremely hectic time period because obviously you finish up, your 4 years and then it's kind of what's next, even if you get drafted in a lot of ways, unless you have a guaranteed contract. So I think you obviously summarized it very well from a college perspective. And then again, speaks a lot on how you are as a person and just how you're always looking for opportunities, you're always looking for players and everything like that. And obviously speaks volumes of the results at the end of the day. So shifting gears a little bit, obviously going into the summer, you're bringing back another really talented group, but I know your recruitment process for the USL2 is something that I don't think we really see across the country. I know a lot of USL2 clubs do a very good job in bringing in players, and some obviously benefit from the name status and everything like that. But I know you have your big board of players that starts in August. So could you kind of talk about the roster you've been able to build for the summer and your process in doing that?
Yeah, I mean, again, like I told you last time, we start the process in August. We watched all of the college season. We're binge watching the whole time, so we get an opportunity to see who's doing well, and then who gets another year of eligibility, or who's returning and not taking their pro option or whatever it may be, their homegrown option. So yeah, I'm really excited about the group. It is a new group again. Obviously we were successful in a lot of guys moving on. Charlie Harper, Nico Calvallo. Obviously, there's a lot of guys. Rodrigo obviously went to Greenville. So there's a lot of guys that have moved on, and so we've had to start again, which was the same as last year. So it was no problem. We do obviously have some guys coming in that are returners like Isaiah Vignali, Dante Huckabee at West Virginia, Dylan Kropp, who's coming back, who's obviously moved over to Chapel Hill. Michael Rempel, Mal Wong from Lindsay Wilson, who were huge parts of last season as well, that sometimes go under the radar. Johnny Mennell's coming back, obviously, who's a goalkeeper for us, who was fantastic for us last season. So we're really happy. Casper Svenby, who I thought would have been drafted, I think he went to the combine and he has obviously another year of eligibility, so he's going back to Pitt. So we're very, very happy with that, in terms of the core guys, Simon Carlson, so those guys are obviously returning, but we are bringing in some guys that I've been a huge fan of for a while. Callum Frogson, who played for Jacksonville Armada last season, who's now at Chapel Hill. Also, he'll be with us next season. We have Augustin Reich from Seton Hall, Argentinian centre back. Very excited about him. Ashton Bilal from Ohio State. Again, another great player. We're bringing in Scott Neal. We actually committed Scott last year, but he had to stay on campus at Barry and do some summer classes. He's transferred to FIU. He'll be definitely one to watch. He's a Scottish winger. Very, very impressed with him over his time at Barry. We're bringing in Tony Kim, who was draft eligible last season. And Tony is going back to UAB next season, was not drafted, so we're excited about him. Eduardo Mustri at FIU, who again, I think you guys actually, pointed out that he did not, it was a bit of a shock. He didn't get drafted. So we're excited about bringing him in. And then I guess on the West Coast for you guys, Tarun Karamanchi from UCLA, who's homegrown from San Jose Earthquakes, which, we're really excited about him too. And that's, there's more. I could go on, but yeah, we're really excited with the talent level. But again, what makes the USL2 in terms of success is how quickly those guys mesh, and how quickly we can create, a culture which is not easy at the USL2 level. So that was something that was very important, and the reason we got so far last season is because of the connections and the relationships that we made. So we'll certainly be focusing on that, and we'll be focusing on that way before the guys get in. That's something that I urge these guys to do now, once they've committed to us. So we will very much see how that pans out.
Yeah, definitely. I think speaks volumes at the talent level. Like I know Karen Munchie, for example, is on a couple of USL championship teams' radar in terms of them trying to bring him in, and obviously he wants to finish up his schooling and everything like that. But again, you put together top rosters year in year out, and those are it's a good balance as well. Obviously, some big names there, but some guys that like you said, kind of fly under the radar because their situation, everything like that. And you spoke about it there a little bit at the end of kind of talking about how important just the team camaraderie is, and you're getting these guys to bond together because it is such a short season, and there are so many clubs with such high talent levels just like you guys. But what is your kind of personal process in terms of, especially comparing it to like a college season? How are you kind of structuring things to get the best out of guys, and also balance the guys' loads, because it is a lot of games over a short period of time.
Well, I mean, I have to get my guys. I talk to my guys all the time about, getting out of your comfort zone, right? And but I have to do that also. I have to do that. It's not about them coming in and then me kind of strolling through the preseason. I have to make meaningful relationships very quickly. And that's not always easy. So, I'm very confrontational in the early stages. I want them to know why they're here. This is not a summer vacation. I do not do this so my wife and kids don't have a summer holiday. I do this because I want to win. And my family sacrificed a massive amount over the last 4 years of doing Nashville City, and not having a summer vacation. We do it because we want to win. So understanding why I'm doing it, and making sure that that is absorbed into their mentality too. And we find out pretty quickly who are the guys that are here for the right reasons and who aren't. And those guys do not last, and that's the reality of it. We're here to create an elite environment. We want to replicate what the USL1, USL Championship teams are doing right now, in their preseason, or additionally to their start of their season. So, yeah, it's difficult, but it's something that's very, very important, because I struggle to identify with players that are coming in to just keep themselves fit for college. I struggle to identify with players that are coming in to enjoy the balance of their summer and have fun. I want it to be ruthless. Your name needs to be on a piece of paper at the end of the summer, that a scout is going back to your college and watching you on ESPN Plus. That is the goal. The goal is for you to publicize yourself so people know who you are at the end of the summer. That's the most important thing. So yeah, once we, that's exhausting and emotional, mentally emotional start to the season because it takes a lot out of me as well. That has nothing to do with coaching. It has nothing to do with the tactics. It's all about creating an identity within each individual to make sure that they understand why they're here. And once we get to that point, then we can focus on the football.
Yeah, no, I think you summarized it very well there. But obviously, I think that's what some people don't realize at the end of the day as well is obviously how big of a sacrifice it is, especially for you. Obviously, you have a year-round college season and everything like that, and at the end of the day, that can be a difficulty associated with USL2, just because obviously people forget that most of these are college players at the end of the day, and going through obviously a college season is pretty grueling, and you top that with schoolwork and whatnot, and it's hard sometimes mentally to have to go through another pretty grueling season where there's more matches and everything like that, and kind of speaking about it more from specifically just a soccer perspective, what are some things you notice in terms of obviously how you're managing games, obviously maybe how your style of play and everything like that in terms of a USL2 season versus a college season? Scott, can you hear me all
So
right?
repeat that. Yeah, I think you're
Yeah.
breaking up a little bit. Sorry, I
Yeah,
lost
yeah.
you there.
Sorry about that. I wasn't sure. I was just more asking about there. Obviously, we're touching a lot on just obviously the mental demands of a USL2 season, how it affects you, but also for you, in terms of just kind of from a soccer perspective. Obviously, USL2 is a bit of a different structure. There's more matches. Teams have a different styles of play compared to what you see on the college side. So, how do you kind of adapt and compare it to like a college season versus a USL2 season in terms of how you're structuring things with Asheville?
Yeah, I mean, again, if we're going to talk about how important the summer is, then we need to replicate it the same in every detail, the same way we do it at the college level. So, we do our scouts on every team. Of course, the streaming situation is different with certain teams, but we try to make sure that we're analyzing ourselves and analyzing the opponents before the game on the build up to the game. And then again, from a positional criteria, we need to make sure that these players are consistent in everything that they do. So yeah, I think it's no. I try to replicate the same as what I would do at the college level. What I've done in the past as an assistant, what I've learned from my mentors. I don't want it to be any different. And I tell the coaches that. I tell the college coaches that all the time that they're going to be coming into an environment that replicates what they will be doing in the fall. And that also is with periodization. We're sometimes playing 3 or 4 games in 15 days, and we need to make sure that we're periodizing the guys and taking care of them. So we have all the access and resources here at Asheville to do so. So then we need to make sure that we fulfill that. And again, I think that was a big part of last season. We had hardly any soft tissue injuries. We had no one that was burnt out when they went back to their college. And it all kind of plays into how we operate. And again, it's very much like going into the college season.
Definitely. I think you summarized it very well there. Obviously, talking about, that periodization process. And I think that can be very difficult over the course of a USL2 season when there are so many matches and also, players' workloads are different, everything like that. I think, in recent years, I think we've also seen some players maybe bow out early and obviously that creates frustration as well. But, I think another thing that, I really do want to touch on with your time with Asheville is obviously you've sent so many guys on and I think we were speaking upon Rodrigo Robles earlier. Obviously, that'll be a bit of a reunion this week. But there's been so many other guys that have moved on to the next level. So, what's your kind of sell to a lot of the guys in terms of if you're trying to bring a guy into the summer of just how many opportunities playing for Asheville has created for you guys?
Yeah, when I took the job in 2022, I was pestering pro coaches and scouts and assistants and just trying to get them to look at my guys. We obviously noticed that there were some players that we knew were going to be ready for the USL level or the draft or whatever it was. But now we have kind of built this into a machine where we have a lot of people that reach out to us. I get a lot of phone calls from a lot of coaches in the different waves of their transfer seasons at the USL level, and the scouts that are obviously preparing for the draft. And a lot of it is them coming to me now because of the amount of players that we've been able to produce. We obviously have a document that we send out to the players, and they can see very clearly the amount of players that we've moved on to the next level. Again, that's not just us. Of course, their colleges have complemented on that massively. But my experience so far is a lot of these scouts and these professional coaches are watching the USL2 season more than they are the college season. I think they watch the college season kind of postseason. once it gets to, the conference tournament and the national tournament. But in the USL2 season, I've noticed that there's a lot of people watching and have their eyes on that, creating their lists to be able to go back to their colleges. So, we sent Nico Carvalho out a lot, over the summer, and the feedback was very, very good. We knew immediately that he was going to be someone that would be a draft contender. Obviously, so proud of him for making his debut at NYCFC and playing against Messi, which we is the dream. But we prepare them for that. We want to get them out as much as we can in the right environments. We don't want them going to combines where there's 40 or 50 players that are there, and it's more of ticking the box and having a combine from the club standpoint. We want them to go into an environment where they're wanted, that they've reviewed this player's profile, they've had a conversation with me, and then we've sent them. Birmingham Legion obviously took a real keen look at Sebastian Tregarthen, and then obviously went back to his college, and then he negotiated an opportunity to go to Legion. We want to orchestrate it where they really are interested in the player, because it's very easy for any of us at the USL2 level to say, Inter Miami are having a combine, go and join those 60 guys and do sprinting tests and do agility tests and all those things. But we want to send you into an environment where you are going, maybe you or one or two other players are going, but you're really being looked at, like truly being looked at. So I think that that's something we talk to the players about. Of course, we lean on some of the players that have been playing for us in the past to communicate with these players as well and let them know, what the environment's like. And, every coach in the country is going to tell you all the things you want to hear. But I think that if you do your research on myself and you do research on the club, you'll see that we follow through. I take it very serious when a player commits to me. That means that they've placed their opportunities and their future in my hands to a certain extent. So it's my obligation to go and find them opportunities. And I get pretty upset at myself when, I bought a player here and they haven't been able to get that. Like Simon Coulson, for example, Sergio Navarro, these guys were placed their trust in me, and have still not been able to find an opportunity, and that weighs a lot on me. So we're still trying that right now, and that's why I want Simon back. To help him and continue to keep pushing him. And the dream is not over until it's over. I try to get the message across to these players as much as I can that I don't take it lightly. The amount of pressure is on me to help these guys and fulfill what I'm telling them on the phone and on the Zoom calls.
Yeah, speaks volumes there at the end, I think, of how much you care at the end of the day. And that's above all else. I think that's what matters most in terms of you obviously advocating for them and doing everything you can. And I think you summarized it very well there earlier of talking about, how meaningful some of these opportunities are to go and train. I think of, another example. I know of Ian Smith obviously spent a couple months this summer with Portland Timbers, just made his first start the other night. So you can tell right there how meaningful these opportunities are just to go in and showcase yourself, because they're not giving these out every single day. And Carvalho is obviously another fantastic example. He's done very well so far in his season. And so I think, for any player that obviously is looking to or was considering Asheville, I think you say it best right there of obviously how much you care and how different this opportunity is in terms of creating opportunities down the line for themselves. So shifting gears obviously in a completely different direction. I know obviously the spring's going on as well. You have your obligations at Gardner Webb, and I know you guys are participating in a pretty cool spring tournament in the Carolina Cup. So how has the spring been so far for you at Gardner Webb in your mind?
Well, Gardner Webb has a lot of other mid majors and lower Division One programs are feeling the frustrations of the new college soccer realm. So we went on an amazing run last season and we created history, and I'll be ever, probably one of the most amazing experiences of my career, if not the most amazing experience. But we, graduated some players, but we lost some also. We lost some because of things that it was out of our control, and out of things we can do for our players. So there was a little bit of frustration coming into the spring because we had our depth chart set and we knew what our returners looked like, and then that shifted pretty quickly with the transfer portal. So now it's time for me to test myself at something I've never done before, which is competing with players with a lot of other universities that can do a lot more than what we can, and a lot of mid majors can. So it's going well. We have a good core group returning, and then we're obviously recruiting hard right now to bring in and replace the quality that we've lost. There's players that graduated like Gianpaolo Nardi, our captain. who was sensational for us last season, Lucas Moura, Kyo Hughes, these players that were fantastic for us. But we've also lost a few other players to the transfer portal that were very impactful for us as well. So we are going through a new era of college soccer, and we just have to deal with it. There's no point, kind of getting frustrated at it and trying to understand why. We just have to move on, and we have to do what we've done, 12 months ago, which was recruit a championship team.
Yeah, no, I think you summarized it very well there. But obviously, it's never changing era, and I know that's present for other sports as well. I know there's been a lot of vocal frustration in other sports as well. And I think the way you obviously talk about it there of taking it on as a challenge again speaks of volumes on you and how you approach things. And obviously this last season speaks volumes and results. But I know, another component within this is obviously you can, create opportunities in recruitment from other places. So I know obviously you're very influential in your recruiting. You're very creative in your recruiting. So how are you kind of going about that now with, more opportunities than ever before in terms of, different countries, using social media as another form of recruitment? How have you taken on a new approach to recruitment in terms of just what everything is going on?
So I think the biggest thing is I've emphasized even more than I ever have before, the person, the character. Um, when we're going through the recruitment process, of course, we always look at those things. But now more than ever, we need players that want to be at Gardner Webb, that want to be part of this process, that want to feel the excitement of what we did last season, know and trust and respect where we are currently. We're a top 30 RPI team right now for the first time in history. In top draw, we finished 23, top 23, 23rd in the country at top 25, sorry. So I want people to be excited by that. I'm not going to beg. I'm not going to try to recruit a player that I think is, halfway in, halfway out. I want players that want to work with me and want to work with this program. And we've always been like that, and I've always been like that, but even more so now, because when you commit a player, we committed a fantastic player today from a very, very good university who's in the transfer portal. I just knew in my heart he wanted to be with me. He wanted to go on this journey with me. And that's the most important thing. I'm not wasting time with convincing guys and reassuring guys that everything's going to be okay. You're either in and you trust me 100% or you don't. And so we have traveled. We've traveled. We've been in Europe over Christmas. We've been in Africa. We've been in South America. We've been all over, and we've identified some players that we believe are going to be loyal, that really want to be part of this process in particular. And we're super excited about what we think we have coming in right now.
Yeah, definitely. And, kind of touching base on this as well, I always kind of find it fascinating how you can evaluate a player's character throughout the process because there's so many intangibles at hand. And I'm sure, as you know, sometimes, players can, have their eyes wander, they can see something that's more glamorous, everything like that. But, what kind of characteristics mentally are you kind of looking for within this recruitment process?
Well, the reality is, they're committing to me. That's the reality, right? They will learn to love Gardner Webb. They will have experience at Gardner Webb that they'll remember for the rest of their life, whether it will be winning championships or whether it will be just the social side of things and creating friendships that, potentially of people that will be at their wedding one day. That's stuff that will come. But right now they're committing to the coach. And I'm not just speaking about me. I'm thinking all mid majors that are going through, this process right now. That's something that I think that everyone's having to deal with, making sure that they're committed to your process, they're committing to you over another program because they believe in you, and that's where it's at right now. The reality is, I mean, I spoke to Lee Squires at Georgia Southern, who lost some great players. John Higgins at Xavier lost some great players, right? And we're all doing the same thing. We might not be able to give them what other universities can do right now. That's the reality of where we're at with NIL, and with the new legislation, but. At the same time, we still know that there's players out there that need and crave that attention of the people, the relationships, the player coach, and so we of course we don't know for certain until they get in and they're in our environment, in pre-season. But we just have to hone down on those details, and we have to have a good instinct about how we feel. For example, I spoke to a player today that I committed. I've been speaking to him for the last couple of months. I chose not to give this player a deadline, which is very unlike me. Usually I give deadlines because if I don't get you, I've got to go and find the next version of you. But I chose not to give this player a deadline because I just felt in my heart that he was genuinely wanting to make the decision to come to Gardner Webb. I felt like he was not looking for any of the answers to steer him away, that he was trying to make sure that everything was in place correctly for him to make the right decision. But I felt it in my heart and my gut that he was doing it for the right reasons. So I didn't place a deadline on him, and he calls me today and he commits to Gardner Webb. So you just have to be instinctive about it. Of course, we're obsessed with this game, so there's not really any minute in the day that I'm not thinking about my team. I'm not thinking about my players, my future recruits that I'm talking with. So I feel like I am in their psyche because all I do is think about them, and how they're feeling, and what could I say to them right now to give them some reassurance of this is the right decision. But ultimately, I think that that's where it's at for us right now, and I think it's working well. We'll see how that goes. Of course, time will tell, but we feel very confident that that strategy is working for us.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you summarized your answer very well there. With obviously the detail that goes into this. And I think something you also point out there is, just how influential this period is for any player. Obviously, I think, I have experience in this. Any player at the Division 1 level obviously has aspirations to move on to the professional level. And, I think so many people forget throughout the process is how important, the relationship you have with your head coaches in terms of one, creating opportunities, but also just making you better as a player and as a person. And I think that's something that is just being forgotten about more and more and more is if you have the right people around you at the end of the day and you have people that will vouch for you and care about you, you'll be in a fantastic position regardless of the name brand of the school or whatever. And shifting back here, obviously, I do want to talk about the season you guys just had. And I think it's, one speaks to how good of a coaching job you did. And obviously the turnaround at Gardner Webb is amazing to think about from a national perspective to where they were when you took over, and obviously the results you guys got over the course of the season. I think of obviously the famous win over Wake Forest, and obviously going toe to toe with a program like Marshall as well. But knocking out a program like High Point twice over the one time, and obviously the postseason, other times in the regular season, obviously the big win over Oregon State. So now looking back upon that season and being able to reflect a little bit, I know you spoke upon it of how it kind of was the best moment of your career, but what are your kind of thoughts now and being able to look back over the course of that season?
Yeah, I mean, I still pinch myself. I mean, it was, when I took the job at Gardner Webb, I was leaving the number 5 team in the country in UNCG. So a lot of people had told me it was a risk. And obviously Gardner Webb had not had that, that championship in the Big South, and maybe there were reasons why. So of course, I was dreaming and I was obsessed with winning the Big South and getting to the national tournament and creating history with Gardner Webb from the minute I walked through the door. And so then, it becomes almost a disease that you can't stop thinking about it. But what you need to do is you need to inject that obsession with your players. You need them to be able to feel the same way that you do. And we played, obviously, in my first year in 2023, we brought in a group and we obviously were in a rebuild season. But I remember my players going to Kerry in the national tournament in 2023. And I remember they went to the Division 2, I think it was the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 games at Limestone when Barry were there and I think Florida Tech were there. And I remember my players were all there. I went to the game and my players were there and I was surprised. And I remember one of the players walking past me at the end and was saying, like, we want this, like, we want to be playing in December. And I think that some of them had just came into the system, first time from another country. Maybe they didn't understand what it kind of meant, going through the college season. And then they came back in January in 2024, and they just became exactly how I wanted them to be. They were just machines. They were just obsessed with winning the Big South. They wanted to knock off High Point, who had done such a great job of dominating our conference for a long, long time. And I think everybody in the Big South wants to be that next High Point, So it's not just us. I'm sure every team is in the same situation. But the good thing for me, and it was just great timing, is collectively my team came together and they wanted that for themselves as well. And they wanted to put a stamp on something that had not been done before, which of course it's a very exciting feeling to want to do something that has not been done before, and be part of something, and be part of something for the rest of their lives that no one can ever take away from them. And we was able to, as a staff, we was able to inject that kind of obsession into them. So that's just kind of how it fell. And as I look back on it now, do I think it was the right decision that we went to Oregon State? No, I think we should have been playing here in North Carolina. We had a high enough RPI to do so, but we'll leave it at that. We went to Oregon State, and we did very, very well. We played very, very well, especially in the second half. I thought we were very dominant, and we absorbed the pressure of them in the first half very well. And then it was just a little bit too much. Denver had a fantastic team, a fantastic team. The altitude really hurt us. The travel hurt us. The turnaround time, was just a little bit too much for us on that day. But again, just so proud of everybody involved. My AD, the president, the support staff. We all were in it together, and it was a season that everything just fell. Their mentalities just fell in place, and collectively we were just right where we needed to be come August.
Yeah, it's amazing to think back on, those little moments of how much they actually matter at the end of the day. And again, obviously, the game is played on the field, and, physical characteristics matter so much in that process. But again, it's mentality of it, and that's continuously come up over this course of the conversation. So it speaks volumes that, again, a little moment like that in, December can have such a massive impact come a year later. And speaking kind of upon mentality, and something I wanted to touch on here is how meaningful that win over Wake Forest was early in the season. Obviously Wake is such an historic program, and I think a lot of times when we think about a program taking a massive step, and there's kind of a marquee win, and obviously being able to beat a program like Wake Forest, looking back upon it now, how much belief and kind of momentum do you believe that kind of gave the squad over the course of the season?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, really appreciative of, Bobby coming to Gardner Webb, because obviously that's not usual with the ACC teams. They don't need to travel out of their conference. So, appreciated that they were willing to do that. And I think that they knew that we had a good group. Obviously, me and Bobby have a good relationship, but I don't think they realized at that moment just how bad we wanted it. And it was, we came out early and we pressed them, and we did it with Marshall too. I think when we conceded to Marshall in the first half, it was because we stopped pressing. We were a pressing team last year, and I think it helped us a lot. In those first 10 minutes, 15 minutes against Wake Forest, we pressed them high, and we were getting turnovers and attacking transition moments, and obviously we got that early goal, and it kind of set the tone for the rest of the game. But what really impressed me is once we went 1-0 up, we didn't sit back. We continued to try and play. We continued to press them, and we really started to lose energy in the last 20 minutes of the second half, and then we got them on the transition for another goal. So the mentality through the 90 minutes of that game was elite. It was elite, and it wasn't just the players that were starting. Our bench all season did an incredible job. Jalen Orr, Aiden O'Hara, who was MVP against High Point in the conference tournament final. These guys were coming off the bench, and it meant just as much to them as it did with the players that were starting. And as part of a championship mentality and the ability to win championships is that the players on the bench are celebrating just as hard as the players on the field. And that's just what we had on that day against Wake. We had a great fan base that day. The university came out, they supported us, and they really gave us the edge to win that game. And yes, you're right. It's set up for us to go on this great season's journey and stay unbeaten at home, which was obviously a great achievement.
Yeah, definitely. I think, a result like that can be so impactful, as like I stated. And I think it was so cool to see, obviously, such a quick turnaround. But I think, like you mentioned there, it was really cool to see an ACC program going on the road and testing themselves. And I don't think it's a coincidence either. Wake Forest season kind of turned around after that as well. So it's kind of
Oh
interesting
yeah,
just
they had
how
a
much
great
that
season. Yeah.
yeah, how much that those matches kind of shaped both the program seasons. And speaking kind of upon meaningful games, obviously, I do want to touch on the Big South Championship and how big a result that game was for you guys. But also, you beat High Point twice in such a short span, and I kind of want to talk about one. Obviously, so much that has to do with mentality, but also a big part of that is obviously a tactical battle. And I want to kind of, if you could just kind of speak upon both those matches and how your team was able to adapt and kind of go back and forth and get a result against a program that beat Pitt this year, in twice in such a short span.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're a great team. Zach's done an unbelievable job at High Point, and it's always difficult playing them. So we had to be right from a tactical standpoint. We had to get it right. Of course, I think that the main and obvious tactic was we need to stop Jefferson Amaya. That was a big part of it. Everything runs through him. He dictates tempo so well. He's an elite player. I have no doubt he's going to go on and do great things after college. But we had to man mark him. We did. We put Gianpaolo Nardi on him. He man marked him, and it was very frustrating for Jefferson, and you could see that during the game. But it allowed us to break lines. It allowed us to be able to play. And of course, Elias Kodri, our striker at the time, was really, really good at identifying the mannerisms of the centre backs, and splitting them and making them and forcing them one way, and then obviously pressing traps, with what they would do next. So yeah, we had got it right from a tactical standpoint, but again, the energy, the occasion. In the first game was we knew that we had to win that game. We conceded 5 seconds to go against Asheville the game before, which would have, if we had won that game, we would have won the regular season, which was frustrating. But I think that the ability to recover from that and to go again straight away with High Point away was unbelievable, and to focus on the details, and focus on the game plan was very, very good. And then of course we were clinical. We got a goal, and then we were able to absorb the pressure for the remainder. And the conference final, was similar. We scored early. I would say that after that, High Point had the better of the run in the first half. But again, we were very, very good in terms of shifting.
Yeah, continuing on here, obviously a little bit of technical difficulties there, but Scott there was talking about, the big stuff. I know obviously they went up 1-0 early on, but, obviously there was a bit of a change in the match. How did you guys kind of adapt to the match as obviously it went on and then obviously get a late winner?
Yeah, that's where like tactics go out the window, really, I guess. And it was the same with Wake Forest in the second half. We just needed to find the will to battle together and shift together. We did a really good job of being able to close the gaps in between the lines, which they did such a good job of their rotations in the final third, that we had to be very, very quick and very reactive to those patterns. So we absorbed it. And then, second half, I must admit, we seen it coming a little bit. Their momentum was going towards them, and they scored a great header. Camraf scored a great header from a corner, and then all of a sudden it's 1-1. And so then again, like all season, what happens then? What do we do then? Just like the Asheville game, going into the High Point, the final regular season game with High Point. What are we made of? What have we been working on throughout the season? The arguments, the laughs, the jokes, the tears, everything comes to this moment right now. And our guys had actually played against High Point in the conference tournament semi-final the year before and took on to overtime. So some of our guys were on the field that experienced that as well. So then the will to want to get it done. And Lucas Moro just had an unbelievable moment in the pocket, turned our guy Aiden O'Hara, who we thought was offside initially, which we were panicking about, got free and scored the goal. And then, from there, we knew it was so close that we didn't allow them any time. We were winning everything, first and second balls. We were time wasting correctly. We were managing the game the right way. And yeah, I'll just never ever forget that moment when we Jalen Orr dribbles off the field, and we had so many fans come. That was something else that was so pleasing. So many of the other sports came from Gardner Webb, the academic teams, the AD, the president, everyone was there, and we went and celebrated with them. And that will be again something that sticks with me for the rest of my career.
Yeah, I actually remember watching that moment live and just how obviously unique of a moment it was, and just I'm sure how much it meant to you and the school of Gardner Webb. That was such a I remember watching the final 20 minutes of that match and kind of just seeing the match kind of turn on its head there, and I remember just how much it seemed like you guys had just could not lose at the end of that game. Like you said, you're winning every first and second ball, every duel, and I think it was just
Yeah.
such an amazing moment to see and encapsulated.
There was a moment. There was a moment at the end where the lady was interviewing me, and if you watch it, Alan Harrocks, our goalkeeper who transferred from USF, he comes over and hugged me, and you can just see in his hug and just his emotion, just how much it meant to him and how much it meant to the team. It was bigger than just winning a conference championship. It was our first ever conference championship in the Big South, and the relief and just all of the hard work through the season. The boys were just it was amazing and exciting, and the adrenaline rush was pumping. But there was also a sense of just a deep taking a deep breath and just saying we did it. So yeah, it was a fantastic moment.
Yeah, no, I do remember that moment, and again, I think that encapsulates it so well. And shifting gears a little bit here, obviously, the season didn't end there. Got you as you mentioned earlier. You got a difficult job, had to fly all the way across the country on kind of short notice, and yeah, you go get another result after clearly a very emotionally exhausting game. You guys come out and like you said, I thought you guys were brilliant on the day. It's such a tough place to go and play. Solons and Co are such top players there, and I know you mentioned he was probably the best striker you guys saw all year. So how did you guys kind of go into that game and approach that game, and how do you feel like you were able to get a result out of that game?
I mean, we sat there for the party, for the watch party, and I think we were all took. We were so shocked that we it wasn't initial celebration. It was like, wait, what? I look over to my AD and he's like, oh my God. He's like, we're gonna have to book flights. We're gonna have to get everything prepared. We've got to leave tomorrow morning. And that was what we did. We I said a quick speech to the university and to my players, and then we went straight to work. Getting flights sorted. I think we left campus at 4 a.m. The next day, and and then we were on our way to Corvallis, and it was a great experience. We loved it. Like I said, I don't think we should have been going. Well, I know we were not meant to be going, but I guess we had to earn our right in the national tournament, which we had not been there for a long, long time. So I get that part of it. So we did take it all in good spirit, and we did start to prepare. We had to do a lot of work. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Oregon State probably got the credit they deserved last season, but their forwards and just some of their players on the field were fantastic. Their centre back Lund, unbelievable. And it was a great game. And the first 20 minutes of the game, I was like, this is gonna be tough. We're gonna have to stick together here. And then they gave us a tent for the halftime, and so I'm talking with my staff at halftime. It's 0-0, and I just listened to my players. I just listened to them, and they felt like they'd absorbed the pressure and they'd got them. And they felt like Oregon State had missed a couple of chances in the first half. We'd missed some as well. Um, but they probably had the better of that first half. And I just listened to my players. And I really didn't know what I was going to say to them at half time because I felt like they'd said everything that I was going to say. And you just seen that again, another great, incredible moment of the season of just listening to them talk, not just the starters, guys that were on the bench. Everyone had a voice in that tent. And they went back out second half, and we dominated, especially the possession, which we were just so excited for. So we felt it coming. We felt the goal coming. Thiago Mendes made an absolutely fantastic run, and Kyle Hughes was in a great position for the cross. And then again, it's all about absorbing the pressure. But we'd managed the game so well against High Point, we felt prepared for it, and we did the same thing again. And again, went back to the hotel and celebrated as a team. And then obviously we're planning another trip to Denver, so it was just nonstop. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's top level management right there because it's so easy in those moments to try to tweak things tactically and whatnot, and just to listen to your players at the end of the day in a moment like that where so much is on the line, and also I think again speaks volumes about the culture you've been able to create there, and how it's such a key moment. They are on literally the same page as you are, and being able to get out a result that I'm sure is such a fantastic feeling. And the last point I do want to touch on over the course of this season here is just obviously you have that quick turnaround and then going to Denver. You spoke upon how difficult the altitude was, but moving forward and in this next season, how good of an experience do you think that was? Have to go to a place it was so difficult to play, and obviously come up a bit short in the end.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Denver were the better team. There's no question. They were fantastic. They tactically they had got us to a point where we were struggling. They scored some. They were clinical in the first 20 minutes of the game. The game was kind of over at that point. Yes, we was battling the travel and the altitude and the fatigue level, but it was an unbelievable experience. Played in front of a great crowd against a top level program that were one of the best in the nation throughout the season. And obviously have a lot of key returners, Leo Andrade, Alan Harrocks, Breno Correa, Thiago Mendes, Jalen Orr, so many players that played in that game that now take that experience on, into next season, and are able to have that in their set of work, their body of work. So yeah, it was massive for us. And we kind of got together at the end. We huddled up as a team, and And you know, as hard as it is to lose, I hate losing, and it was hard to deal with that the journey was over. We were celebrating as well what we have done, and I think that it took a minute for the guys to calm down. We got into the locker room, and I think everyone started to realize just what we have achieved. And you know, very much one of the reasons for staying and signing a new contract is because I don't want to be known as that team that won the Big South and went to the national tournament that one season in 2024. You know, the body of work means a lot to me. That's why I've stayed at Asheville for so long, is because the body of work means a lot to me. So I want to sustain this and I want to continue it, and I want to be able to now take that environment that we was at in Denver and use it as a recruitment tool, and use it as the expectation of every player we bring in needs to be able to play in those environments. You know, so it was massively beneficial for us in the future of Gardner Webb.
Yeah, I think, again, reflection is such a key word. And you touched on at the end of obviously the 2023 season of your team having a chance to reflect and see what it meant to be playing soccer at the end of the year. And again, I think reflection is such a key term in moving forward. Obviously, you guys can reflect on what you've done and now challenge yourselves to take the next level. And again, as well as you spoke upon there, you also reflect on your own career and realizing how big body of work is. And I think, especially in the modern day when everybody's jumping around so much, I have immense respect for you continuing to try to build something and create something there. And again, no doubts in my mind about how much success you've had wherever you've been. That it's gonna be another fantastic season moving forward again at Gardner Webb and obviously Asheville as well. And again, I want to thank you so much for coming on. It's always such a joy to speak to you, and again, always learn so much. And I think there's so many people that will be able to learn so much as well. So it was a pleasure as always.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Always love talking with you, and you know, really excited for this new venture that you've got, and super supportive of it. Before you go, I just wanted to make a shout out to Old London Road, which is our sponsor for Asheville City and our supporters bar. If you're ever in the Asheville area, please go to Old London Road. It's a fantastic bar. It's just non-stop football on the TV. They're massive supporters of Asheville City. So if you are in town, please make sure you go there. I just want to give them a shout out because they've been very supportive of us over the years since I've been here.
Definitely, actually, ironically, as I mentioned earlier in this episode, that was the bar I had known about when I was watching you guys at the end of the 2024 season. So I think it's such a cool thing they have going on. And again, I think what you guys have going on as Asheville is so special, and I'm really looking forward to see next week's matchup and the Open Cup. And I really believe you guys can get a result. So pleasure again as always, and look forward to talking soon.
Thank you, Cullen. Appreciate it, buddy.
Perfect. All right, have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.